I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Robert Ingalls. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I am having a lovely night. Thank you.
Hey, it's a great pleasure to connect with you. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Please do tell us, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. That's on the eastern side of the United States.
Oh, sweet. So I was in North Carolina just in February. There were lots of floods when I was there, though. But yeah, North Carolina is pretty cool, man. There was a car show in town. Pretty awesome stuff.
Oh, nice. You were in Charlotte?
Yeah, I think so. Well, okay, so I'm not good with directions, but I think I
Sure.
was in, okay, we better leave that there.
That's all right.
So the city is Durham, is it?
Oh, yeah, Durham. Perfect. That's probably, a little maybe 2.5 hours from here.
Okay. Yeah, North Carolina definitely met some amazing people there. Well, tell me, Robert, it's the Bible Belt, right? Like I visited the library that has the AI in it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. North Carolina is firmly in the Bible Belt. I'm in Charlotte, which is really metropolitan area, the biggest city in North Carolina by far. So I'd say it's certainly, if there is a progressive area of North Carolina, it's definitely where I am.
Oh, sweet. Robert, tell me, which of your talents is responsible for us meeting?
I'd like to think it's my podcasting talent. But yeah, I've been podcasting for a couple of years. It's something I'm very passionate about. And lately, so I was a litigation attorney for the last 6 years. And a couple of years ago, I got married. My wife, told me she was ready to have kids. And so I decided, wow, I took a real good reflection on my life, and I realized I do not want to do what I am doing for the next 40 years. And so I did a lot of soul searching, and it kind of led me into podcasting as a hobby. And that hobby, thankfully, has allowed me to, as my side hustle at first, and now I've been able to turn it into my main hustle recently. So, yeah.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal for me.
Now let's talk about your podcast. So the name of your podcast is Future Self Podcast, right?
That is right. When I initially launched that, I wasn't really ready to tell the world that I didn't want to be a lawyer yet. And so when I launched it, I actually launched it as a part of my law firm. And I would try to talk about stuff that was related to the law on the podcast while also discussing personal development. And then I found myself after a few episodes just kind of completely forgetting about the law and talking about the things that I was passionate about. So I realized, hey, I probably need to split this off.
Well, that's fascinating. Wow. That is a pretty intriguing story in terms of how your passion led past your brilliance, right? Because your brilliance was telling you, okay, I'm going to do this way, the strategic way. But when your passion ignited, it's amazing what occurred, isn't it?
It really is. I had never given myself that that leeway. I'd never told myself you can actually do a thing that you're passionate about. It just didn't seem like it was possible. It seemed a little touchy-feely. And so I did what I was told by my teachers and my parents, and they were all great people trying to do what was best for me. But their plan was go to school, get a job, get a job that is proven that someone else does lawyer. Everyone always told me I should be a lawyer. So I was like, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. I'll go do that.
Wow.
But I just didn't find the joy in it. So I'm glad I found it now before I was too much older.
Yeah, I too. So who did you learn this skill of following your heart from? Is it someone in your family, or is it the newborn?
It's hard to say who did I learn it from. If I had to pin it on one person, a lot of things are responsible for me being where I am. But I remember when I had that discussion with my wife and we were discussing having kids. It was a real big moment in my life, and I just said, I don't like what I'm doing. I got to figure something out. So I started listening to audiobooks. I started listening to podcasts. That's when I really first even started listening to podcasts ever, was in that moment a little over 2 years ago. And I was listening to this one podcast. I remember exactly where I was. It was called Awesome Office. And this guy named Tom Bilyeu, he is a founder of Quest Nutrition. Now he has his own show called Impact Theory. Really good show. but he was on as a guest. I think he was like the first or second guest on the show, and man, it was just you have those moments where time kind of slows down and someone's it feels like they're speaking right to you. And
Hmm.
he was telling me all the things that I felt about myself, and he was like, those things are bullshit. Like, you can do what you want to do.
Hmm.
And I'd never really thought about it.
Hmm.
I don't know, I never gave myself that license. So if I had to really look at one moment that I was like, I can follow this and do what I want, it was probably that one.
Oh, wow. Why will you continue to repeat this skill? You've dived into it now. You see the work it takes, right? It definitely takes work, right? Why will you continue to repeat this skill?
Well, after being an attorney, that takes a lot of work too, and it's not that fun. So when I get to sit and do something that it really doesn't feel like work that much, it's so like whenever someone's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast," I'm like, "Do you have 4 hours for me to talk to you? Because this is what it's going to take." Because I'm so passionate about it that anytime anybody gives me a moment to discuss it, that's all I want to do.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
that really doesn't feel like work to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the elements of the emotions that I feel connected me to my memory of where I was in North Carolina, and it was rally. It's definitely what you're doing, right? You're rallying around your vision, right? Your
Oh,
your dreams. It's fascinating.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, tell me one other thing you've done consistently over the last 3 years.
Over the last 3 years, learn something new every day. Maybe not the full 3 years, but definitely a little over 2 years. One of the goals I made and then that I followed through with is every night when I go to bed, I know something I didn't know when I woke up that morning, whether it be something I learned on a podcast or an audiobook or a blog. I am constantly educating myself I always want to move forward. And that's another thing that I'll tell you from the same guy, Tom Bilyeu. He has this saying, ideas in equals ideas out. The more ideas you put in your head, the more it's going to spark your creative process. And that has been incredibly true for me because I have these like kind of inklings of an idea, and then I'll hear someone say something, and it just sends off an explosion. And I can sit down and pump out like 1,200 words on an idea that I wasn't even sure I had.
Wow. Well, we love the number 12, so yeah, keep doing those 1,200 words, right? Well, how does it make you feel?
Amazing. It's scary as hell. I'll say that because it just seemed like I went into a profession that the book is already written. You take these steps, you do these things. This is how you do it. And now I'm kind of jumping out into the deep end of a pool. And when I first started considering this, I was like, I don't even know how these people make money. Like,
Hmm.
is this a viable thing? And so just going through that process and learning how to get clients and convince people that you know enough, which is good because it's this podcasting is still developing.
Yeah.
And I forget because I hang out with so many and talk to so many people that are podcasters, I forget that most of the world doesn't know anything about it yet. And
Yeah.
and so as it's exploding, I am still considered kind of an early adopter of the form.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy earlier on because we are about to design some memorabilia, right? And it's going to be localized. So the designer, I was asking him, I said, yeah, I run a podcast. Do you know what a podcast is? He said, well, my son goes to university. He probably knows what that is.
Yeah, I love it. I went to Podcast Movement. It's a convention for podcasters. It was in Anaheim this year, and they did a presentation at one of the keynotes, and kind of laid out the population that knows about it. And I think that the population 55 and over, only 60% were even familiar with the term. Not even
Wow.
had listened to it, were familiar with the term podcast.
Which speaks masses at the same time, right? It's a huge market still for those that are about to enter in and give people opportunity to have what looks like radio on demand, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
And that's
yeah.
really the thing is they just need to be introduced to the medium and how it works because it's so far superior to the radio. You don't spend 30 minutes waiting for that story they keep telling you is coming, and then you get out of your car when you're at work and you never even heard the story, and now the story is gone forever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, tell me, there's probably a litigation lawyer listening to this, or someone else in a corporate world, or wherever, but they're listening to this, and they too feel as though they can jump or go for their dream. Why would you suggest they do that?
If what you're doing doesn't bring you any joy and you don't feel like it's authentic to who you are, then then you're just like, your life is so short. Like, I'm 37 years old right now, and it feels like that happened really, really quickly. And I'm so sad. I mean, not sad, that's the wrong word. But I wish I would have found it earlier. But now I also think, if, I still have a number of years left, I don't want to waste one more second doing something that A, doesn't bring me joy, and B, doesn't change the world. Yeah, I feel like I have such a little bit of amount of time left, and there's so many things that I want to do to leave my mark on the world, that I would tell that person, if you aren't happy, I know it's hard and it's going to be scary to do that thing, but just start. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow, but start doing something today that will get you a little bit closer to, what you think brings you joy. You might not even know what that thing is. Just start looking. That's the first step. Just start looking for the thing that you feel like might bring you joy. And then when you hit that intersection, you're going to know it. And that's when you kind of put the car in drive and go.
Love it. Amazing audience, we are live here with Robert Ingalls of the Future Self podcast. Do check him out. Robert, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine. It is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Robert, what is your earliest childhood memory?
My earliest childhood memory, I would say, I'm not sure if this is one memory or kind of a collection of memories, because I think this was my everyday routine. But I remember getting up. We had this tiny little house. It was me, my mom, and my sister. And I would wake up and I would be so excited every morning. And I would get up and I would rush through breakfast, usually cereal. And then I would put on my clothes, and I had these cowboy boots, and I would put them on. And I loved them. And I would go out front of my house, and I would ride a big wheel. I'm not sure if you know what a big wheel is. It's a tiny little thing. It's got this, it has a really big wheel in the front. It's kind of like a tricycle, but it has a really big wheel. And I would just like tear up the sidewalk back and forth, which in my memory, it was like all day. But I just remember the level of joy that I had doing it. And I was so excited every morning to get up and go do it. That's definitely my fondest and most clear memory. I was probably 3 or 4 at the time.
Why do you think this memory sticks out so much?
I don't know. I mean, maybe just because it was so fun. I remember that feeling. And sometimes now when I'm about to do something I really like, or I'm excited about something, I kind of have that same feeling, and it takes me back to those moments where I was like, oh, the world was just mine. I'm going to go out and do the thing I love. And it was riding a big wheel then.
That's fascinating. Well, 2 things really stick out to me. The first thing, before I ask to give an interpretation to the thought picture, is that, if I'm not mistaken, the guy right before your conversation, no. So it'll be 2 conversations back. Like, his earliest childhood memory is being on one of those big wheels. He didn't call it a big wheel though. He called it a tricycle, right? and that's fascinating in itself. But the second thing is, like, for the interpretation of the thought picture you created in my mind, is the image of you needing to come downstairs to have fun. And as much as that seemed the image in that you stepped down from being a lawyer to a podcaster, and I mean, it's all metaphoric, right? But
Sure.
that you stepped down to have fun, to be able to do the thing you love, is definitely fascinating to me.
I love that.
Yeah. I love the cowboy boots too, right? Like,
Yeah, and I'll say I don't think I've worn them since. It's not really my style as an adult, but as a child, man, that was my thing.
Yeah. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
12 years old, I guess that's 92, 93. I was really big into Seattle sound back then, like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains. But if I had to pick one song that I was probably playing on repeat back then, it was probably Far Behind by Candlebox.
Yeah. Definitely always connects, right? Like, I mean, just for a bit you were far behind, right? And now you're definitely going forward.
Yeah, and that's a killer song. It still holds up.
Love it. Well, Robert, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. Says yes or no, possibly a bit more. Robert, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Well, I have a daughter who is almost 7 months old, and I'd like to pass my skills on to as many people as possible. But I definitely would love to pass on everything positive that I have to her.
You said you were married, right?
I am.
You said you have one daughter. Do you believe in God?
That's a complex question for me. I will say that I don't not believe in God. I look at the world around me and it's beautiful, it's fascinating. There's things that I can't explain. So when I look up in the sky, my biggest and best answer is, this is beautiful. I have no idea what's going on.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do. I would say that it's not, tight like it used to be. I mean, my circle of friends now is my wife and my daughter. We spend a lot of time together, and thankfully we really like each other. So,
what about TV? Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I love TV, and I used to watch TV for probably 3 hours a day, but no, not anymore.
What about 3 hours a week?
On a bad week, maybe, but generally not. We got rid of cable a few years ago, and that's been very helpful, because now when we watch TV, we watch it with intentionality. We don't sit down and turn it on and let it go. Like, when we watch something, it's because this is a show we want to watch, and we sit down and we carve out the time to watch it. But I love TV, but at the same time, there's other things that have to get done.
Yeah. And what about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh man, I'd say probably more than 8. Just because all my work is there. Yeah. Everything I'm doing, I'm in that screen a lot.
Robert, after having 1,001 conversations in 2016, I came up with a workbook that is called Yours, and it stands for Your Own Unique Real Self, and connected to that is Your Own Unique Real Statement. If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, something that represents Robert Ingalls, what would you say that is?
That's a good question. I would say be ruthlessly authentic about who you are and the mark that you want to leave on the world. Find your unique voice and use that voice to change lives.
Love it. Robert Ingalls, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
You can find me at robertingles.com. I'm also, we didn't talk about this much, but I'm launching a coaching business for young men as well. I'm not taking any more clients at the moment, but you can sign up for my mailing list at robertingles.com, and I'll send you a handy quick reference networking cheat sheet. And it'll basically give you the outline for making high value contacts at networking events. But you'll also be the first one to know when I'm opening up my new program for clients. You can find me at social media at Robert Ingalls on Facebook, and then Twitter and Instagram at Robert B. Ingalls. Middle initial B as in boy.
Love it. Robert Ingalls. Now, Ingalls is Ingalls, right? So,
yes, sir.
Robert Ingalls, this was a great pleasure, my friend. Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Absolutely. Pleasure was mine.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.